What is up, guys? I don't think I'm talking weird anymore, but I'm gonna start off by saying sorry if I do talk a little weird. I had a little bit of dental work done, and the right side of my mouth is like the gums are super swollen right now. But it was on a fucking Tuesday. What did I talk about last episode, man? Fucking Tuesdays. It has been an absolutely crazy week, so this was definitely, we didn't know if she was going to be recording this week, but we made it. Let's just say another little story time is I put in my notice at my current job, and let me tell you, they do not want me to leave. It has been a ride the past 48 hours. Anyways, welcome to episode 5 of Meet Me at Midnight. I can't believe it's been a month already. It's been over a month. That's absolutely bananas to me. But I'm super excited. And this week I'm doing a paranormal episode about the RMS Queen Mary, which most people have heard of, but if you haven't, strap in. It's fun. So the Queen Mary is a British passenger ship, think like Titanic, of the Cunard Line. And it was the epitome of the transatlantic ocean liners and was in service from 1936 to 1967. In the late 1920s, the French line created the Normandy, and the Normandy at the time was the fastest, most elegant ocean liner to exist. So in response, the British line created the Queen Mary and its sister ship, the Queen Elizabeth. Both were luxurious, large, and powerful cruise liners. And then the construction of Queen Mary began in 1930. Work halted for about 2 years during the Great Depression, and then in 1934, the ocean liner was launched and christened by its namesake, Queen Mary herself. And the work was officially completed 2 years later in 1936. So let's talk about stats. The Queen Mary was 311 meters or 1,019.5 feet. And it was Britain's first entry into the 1,000-foot and above category of ships. It was 81,237 gross tons and was built to carry comfortably 2,038 people. So remember, that doesn't seem, that's a lot, but it also doesn't seem like a lot compared to how big this ship is. But this is like an elegant, this is like first class, like fancy ship. Okay, if you're thinking Titanic, like there's third, second, and first class. Like first class had space, you know what I mean? And then the cruising speed was 28.5 knots. So why Queen Mary? The legend is that the Cunard Line directors had decided to name the ship the Queen Victoria originally, and this would have kept up with the tradition of Cunard ships having the IA at the end of the name, like Mauritania, Aquitania, and Bergeria. I literally don't know how to say that. But as it goes, the Cunard directors went to ask King George for his blessing of the ship's name, saying, "We have decided to name our new ship after England's greatest queen, aka Queen Victoria, the king's grandmother." And the king replied saying, "My wife, Queen Mary, will be delighted that you are naming the ship after her." And the rest was history. So the king assumed it was Queen Mary, so therefore it was Queen Mary. So voyages, everything, this is everything leading up to like when it stopped traveling. So on May 27th, 1936, the Queen Mary departed from Southampton, England on her maiden voyage with the destination of New York City. She had 5 dining areas, 2 cocktail bars and swimming pools, a grand ballroom, a squash court, gym, library, and even a small hospital. And it was decorated in an Art Deco style and had a lot of murals and paintings. The Queen Mary was known for its elegance, comfort, and was popular with celebrities, politicians, and other prominent figures like Bob Hope, Fred Astaire, Elizabeth Taylor, Audrey Hepburn, Winston Churchill, Dwight Eisenhower, and Queen Elizabeth herself. And In September of 1939, Queen Mary was traveling to New York City when World War II started. So the liner suspended its commercial service for the time being and was fitted as a troop ship and was later nicknamed the Grey Ghost, which is badass if you ask me. I mean, my name is Grayson, but I go by Gray. I want to be called the Grey Ghost. That's kind of sick. Anyways, it was one of the fastest and largest vessels in the war, and in 1943, it set the record for number of passengers in one trip at 16,683 people. Which, remember, this was a ship built for like 2,100 people max. At least comfortably. So to fit that many on there was kind of insane. And then after the war, Queen Mary was retrofitted to be a commercial liner again and made its first post-war voyage in 1947. Sorry, that was kind of a tongue twister for me. And the ship maintained popularity until the 1960s, when airplane travel became the preferred method to transatlantic liners. So in 1966, Cunard announced that they would be selling the ship. And then the following year, the city of Long Beach, California, bought it for $3.45 million. It is currently, it's anchored in Long Beach and it's still there to this day. The city's plan was to turn it into a hotel and a tourist attraction, which they did. So the Queen Mary had $31 million worth of renovations done. And then in 1971, the liner began hosting tours, and by the end of the year, a part of the, quote, Museum of the Sea was opened for public access as well. And then in 1972, the hotel and several restaurants on board opened and began accepting guests. So the ship has closed a couple of times throughout the years. It closed in 1992 and was reopened the following year due to having a hard time finding firms willing to maintain the ship. So like cost of maintenance and also like having crew on board. And it also closed from 2020 to 2022 due to the COVID pandemic. The operator at the time filed for bankruptcy, so during COVID in 2021, and the city reclaimed control of the ship. And as of right now, in 2024, it is available for booking at the hotel. I vaguely remember taking a tour on the Queen Mary when I was really young, and I don't think, from what I could see, they still don't have this exhibit, but there was a Princess Diana exhibit, and I remember going to that, and going on like one of the generic tours, but I don't remember much else from it. But I would love to go back as an adult and like stay for a night or two. And then, is the Queen Mary haunted? So the meat of this episode, the answer is definitely. It's been named the most haunted ship in the world, and I mean, it makes sense. The ship has seen some shit. So obviously we get hauntings from deaths. So the Queen Mary has had 47 recorded deaths. Whether the death was on the Queen Mary itself or because of the Queen Mary. So a lot of deaths were recorded during her time in World War II. Also, side note, love that ships are called she and her. I love it for her. In the summer, soldiers slept shoulder to shoulder above deck and took turns sleeping in the bunks below. And the ship was definitely over capacity for comfort, kind of like we talked about earlier. So below deck, there was very little airflow and it was suffocatingly hot. And quite a few soldiers died from heat exhaustion. Some jumped ship. And there is a legend that says that the staff on board went crazy too. And one of the really gruesome rumors was that the galley crew locked the chef in his oven and roasted him alive. And then in 1942, the Queen Mary accidentally collided with a small friendly cruiser that was escorting her around the Irish coast and split it in half. She wasn't able to stop, so an estimated total of 329 men died in that collision. Some of them from the initial hit and others from drowning and hypothermia from the freezing water. And obviously it's only estimated, like, they had no idea how many bodies had, like, sunk down already, you know? It was only, like, 329, like, closely confirmed deaths. And then on to the hauntings. So All in all, the ship is guessed to be haunted by over 100 spirits, and these are some of the most like notable things that happen on the ship. So overall, people complain that they feel very uneasy or experience vertigo throughout the ship. And not in like a ship is moving or at sea kind of way since it's docked, but like the energy of the space they're in makes them feel ill. In general, people also have had apparition sightings, have heard screaming, sudden temperature changes, sounds of closing doors, running, children playing and giggling, the smell of smoke, and other ghostly figures who disappear suddenly. So specifically in the staterooms, people frequently smell smoke from cigars and perfume, and they also hear creaking doors, knocking, laughter, and talking when no one is there, and whistling as well. And then the Mauritania room, it's like a large dining event space on the ship, and in 1989, 3 women that were part of the cleaning crew were there, and they saw someone sitting on the floor, and the person sitting there refused to move. And when the girls called security, the figure vanished in front of their eyes. I'm just imagining like the girl from the Ring movie sitting there with her back to you, like rocking back and forth like a psycho. I would absolutely be running the other direction. Or I just like close my eyes and like plug my ears at the same time and just wait until the sun comes up. And then in the Mayfair room, which was originally a beauty salon, but is now an office space, an employee had come into work early and suddenly gotten the chills and saw a man in white pass through the door. And then one of the more well-known ghosts is the ghost of John Petter. I think that's how you say his name. He was crushed in an automatic watertight doorway during an emergency fire drill and died there. And he's often seen in blue overalls around that door. So people can see him walking, whistling, asking for a wrench, or they'll like get a glimpse of him and he'll just disappear. So like I think people, from what I understand, people think it's like a real person and they like do a double take kind of thing and then poof, just gone. And then the first class swimming pool, people will hear footsteps and wet footprints will appear on the floor around the pool. And then in the second class swimming pool, a little girl who drowned there is often sighted as well. And then in the third class playroom / nursery area, you can hear children crying and laughing. I don't know why ghost kids really get me, but they do. Like every horror sound ever uses a child's voice and it's automatically 100% scarier than anything else that could ever be used. Also, I should say PSA, demons like to impersonate children. And then besides the literal entire ship being haunted, the most haunted place on the ship is room B340. So it was originally 3 separate third-class rooms that were combined into one large room in 1967 when the ship retired and became a hotel. So one of the ghosts that is said to haunt the room is a third-class passenger, Walter J. Adamson, who died in the room in 1948. And then a really creepy theory about the room is that the ship's staff had locked a third-class guy, in this room after he murdered 2 women in the 1960s. And during the night, he began beating on the door and screaming at the guard outside that there was something in there with him. And when the door opened the following morning, they found his body bloody and mangled. So like he literally had been ripped apart, like to pieces. Yowza. It is also said that a demon inhabits this room as well. If you haven't watched Sam and Colby's multiple YouTube investigations of this room, just go watch it. You'll thank me later. I will never get tired of watching their videos on this. It scares the shit out of me. Pretty much everyone who has ever stayed in that room has experienced something. So one woman said that she was woken when the bed covers were ripped off of her in the middle of the night. And she then saw a man looming over the bed, like over the end of the bed, watching her. I would freak out. Like, I'm already, like, so disoriented when I wake up and, like, angry. And then to see someone standing over me, I don't know if I would, like, I don't know if I'd hit fight or flight. You know what I mean? You never know till you know. And then others also hear voices and complain that faucets turn on and off by themselves. They hear knocking on walls and doors, and people get nauseous and get vertigo in this room, specifically a lot. This room is so haunted that most staff refuse to go in there. Throughout the 1970s, there were so many negative reports and occurrences in that room that it was closed for over 30 years when it reopened in 2018. It ended up opening as a haunted attraction, and the room comes with paranormal encounters, like, written out on the walls. So, like, they have, like, printed out, like, decals, like, stuck to the walls around the room with different, like, quotes from, like, what people have experienced there throughout the years. They also include a Ouija board, candles, crystals, tarot cards, and the bathroom itself even has the Bloody Mary ritual, like, how to stuck to the wall for people to try and do it. Also on the tarot cards, like, if you know nothing about tarot cards, here's something you should know. Don't ever touch somebody else's tarot cards. That shit is filled with their energy. So, like, that's why people, like, I have tarot cards, and I don't let other people touch my tarot cards. Unless I'm, like, trying to do something specifically for them. Like, it's really bad juju to let a bunch of people touch one set of tarot cards and not, like, cleanse them in between. As of right now, it costs $500 a night to stay there. However, the room closed again when the ship's hotel closed down for COVID and was only reopened for a small period of time afterwards. And as of today, from what I understand and what I can find, the room remains closed to the public. And I'm so sad about it. I also did a little bit of digging. I kind of wanted to see some more, like, personal experiences, like things you would find on the walls of the room. So here, I went digging on Reddit, okay? Reddit is the unsung hero of the internet. You can find everything there. So here are a few of the encounters I found. I'm going to read most of them word for word, because they're pretty quick, like, little experiences. So the first one, user unknown. I had a few experiences years ago when I toured the ship. We were viewing the swimming pool, which is very empty now and used to be a sleeping area of sorts for troops. I was startled to see some shadows diving into where the water would be from a height that I would guess was a diving board. We also went to a darkened room the tour guide said used to be a dressing room for entertainment shows the ship would put on back in the day. I immediately felt like I was going to faint and that my battery drained. The guide said that happens often here. We also went to a shower area the guide said had been reported to be a portal, but I didn't feel anything at all. I did get some very spooky pictures of faces in that area. I was very young and they scared the shit out of me, so I deleted them. Quote, like, in parentheses, before cell phone cameras. And I constantly wish I had kept them. I sometimes wonder if the phenomenon knows we will delete photos before sharing or influence us to do that somehow. I wish this person had the photos too. I wish they had been able to post them because that would have been so fun to see. Okay, another one is another user unknown. I had a very odd experience on the Queen Mary. Did an impromptu tour of the boat. There was a flea market in the park next to her, and with admission you could walk around the boat. My friend walked around looking at the pictures, walking through some hallways and either side deck and the engine rooms. Going up one side of the engine room on a thin metal ladder, I got very discombobulated / vertigo. I don't know what. I felt sort of dizzy since getting on the ship, but this was suddenly very intense, and I'd actually clawed at the railing to hold on as I lost my balance and keeled toward the side. While the Queen Mary is floating technically, she doesn't move that much or pitch or roll at all. It was the strangest thing and never felt anything like it since. Not long after touring the boat, my friend and I parted ways and I went home and collapsed into an all-encompassing nap for about 2 hours. I was suddenly just exhausted, like all of my energy had been zapped. I texted my friend when I woke up and found out she'd had the same exhaustion / nap experience. Ghosts like to do that. They like to take your energy from you. It's the same thing like the electromagnetic energy. They like to take your energy from you. A lot of people experience that, especially sensitive people, which I'll talk about a little bit later. A lot of those types of people will get their energy drained from them if they're around paranormal activity. And then one user on Reddit, Master Chief Sierra 711, picked up EVPs of men speaking in German, men who were prisoners of war from World War II, who had been transported across the country in the ship's keel. The entire time from the moment I set foot aboard that ship, I had experiences, including a full apparition encounter not 5 minutes after I boarded the ship. I have investigated well over 100 locations in my paranormal work, and without a doubt, the Queen Mary is the most haunted place I have ever investigated or encountered. Yeah, that's saying something. I feel like that'd be so cool. I wish she had, whoever this is, had included the EVPs of the POWs. I feel like that'd be really cool to hear, and I'd also love to clip it in here, but alas, it was not included in the posts. And then from Mikey Likey 41, it says, I spent the night there and was woken up by the apparition of a little girl in a long dress playing hide and seek in my room. Okay, first of all, fuck nah. I mean, it's short, sweet, and totally my nightmare come to life. And then last one from Reddit is from user Chromehead. He said, took the haunted tour a few months ago after they just reopened after COVID. Lots of stories from the tour guide of past sightings and deaths that took place on board. Have to say, a few spots on the ship made me feel very weird and uneasy. The whole thing feels very off inside. Which, that uneasy feeling seems to be a general consensus amongst most people. I guess I should say, I should quote, the sensitive people I was talking about earlier. Not everyone is attuned to the paranormal. The most sensitive people being mediums, and the least being people who have never experienced or felt anything at all. I fall somewhere in the middle. I'm definitely not a medium, but I've definitely experienced some things and am attuned to some things. So overall, this place is super fucking haunted. It is literally like walking on a ghost ship, even when there's people on it. It's so massive. It's creepy. Inherently, this place has to feel creepy. It's old, it's been through war, it's seen death. It's also a floating metal box on the water, in the ocean. So, enough said. Obviously, as per usual, I would love to stay a night in one of the staterooms available and, take a tour or something. And then, besides, the ghosty stuff they also have a ton of, historical exhibits and tours on board. They have a steam and steel tour where you can go below the waterline and see the boiler rooms and the turbo generator. They also have an Art Deco tour, which, if you remember from the beginning, the style of the ship was entirely Art Deco, and they had a bunch of paintings and murals. So you can take a tour of that as well. So if you like art, that's a good one. And then obviously they have ghost tours and a seance experience. I'm a bit skeptical of people who get paid to do seances because it's kind of like a show. It has to be good, So if I was going to go do a seance, I'd rather do it myself. But also I don't think I'd ever do a seance. I don't want an attachment, you know what I mean? But yeah, so that was the RMS Queen Mary. I hope you guys liked the episode. As always, go follow my Instagram and TikTok for updates and things like that. And I will see you all next week at midnight. Bye.